Hello and welcome again to Learning to Pray the Examen. This video series is based on Jim Manny's work on the prayer that was developed more than 500 years ago by St. Ignatius Loyola. This prayer has one goal: to help us see where God is already present in leading in our lives by looking at the last 24 hours and looking ahead to the next day. I highly recommend Jim Manny's book, A Simple Life-Changing Prayer, and suggest you also could check out his own video series called The Lunchtime Examen. In this video, I will walk you through the 5 steps of the examen. We begin with thankfulness. Then we ask God for the grace to see our lives as God does. Then we review the events of the last 24 hours, paying attention to what stands out, especially in our emotions. In the 4th step, we seek forgiveness when things have gone bad. And we finish by asking God for the help that we'll need in the day ahead. But before we begin our prayer today, I want to ask the question, what's the point of it all? Why would a busy person take time to pray this prayer? And why would you want to make it a daily personal discipline, just the way you might spend time on a treadmill or going to the gym? Disciplines are practices that we do with specific outcomes in mind. If you want to lose weight, you take care about what you're eating and when you eat it, and you adopt certain disciplines about how all that happens. If you're a student in high school and you want to go to college, you approach homework differently with a different sense of purpose. You might set up when you study, or where you study, or who you study with, all with the goal of the disciplined work of academics in order to get good grades and to learn so that you can go to college. If you're an athlete, even if you're just wanting to be able to stay in shape or keep from getting hurt while playing tennis, you take on certain disciplines at the gym. You might take on running or work on lateral motion. You might work on strengthening your curve or core, or develop routines that develop and maintain flexibility. When I was in college, there was a friend of mine on the baseball team who was aspiring to get signed by a pro team. Every night, no matter what, he stood in our dorm hallway in front of a full-length mirror and worked on his swing. He started slow. He broke his swing into a couple of steps. And then after a few careful slow-motion swings, he would work up to full speed and do 50 swings a night year-round. Disciplines have a goal and a purpose. People whose goal it is to be like their mentor and to do what their mentor does follow the disciplines that their mentor does and teaches. Jesus is the ultimate mentor, and Jesus chose followers and offered them a way of life to be like him in his freedom and a relationship with the Father, and to do what he was doing in the mission to reach other people with the love of God, expressed in serving them, healing, and inviting them into life together. He taught them the disciplines that would make it possible for them to be like him. He asked them to do what he did. Ironically, most of us today are more familiar with being Christian with a discipleship option. We place 90% of our emphasis on the first step, which is coming to accept that Jesus is Lord. We might call that right belief. But most of us spend only about 10% on learning to live and to do what Jesus taught his disciples. The effect of that is it leaves many of us feeling unsatisfied, like going to church on Sunday is really all there is about being Christian, other than trying to live a moral life. Believing in Christ always leads to following Christ. And following Jesus always leads to that invitation to be included as a disciple, a person who is learning to be like Jesus, to see and respond and experience to the things that happen in life the way that Jesus did, to know the fullness of life, the capacity of love that Jesus has, learn to love others the way that Jesus loves others, and that comes through practicing the disciplines that Jesus taught. And that's where this prayer of examen comes in. We learn to become aware of God, not only in church or during times of prayer and worship, but all the time, especially in the places that often seem difficult. We, through the examen, become aware of God, and we become aware of other people. We learn to listen differently. We hear them, and we hear our God in our conversations. When we're caught up in our busyness, and our agenda is the one that we have so forcibly placed before us, we can really only hear the loudest interruptions in our schedules. Without awareness, we can't hear God or the people around us, and we find that we're moved mostly by anxiety and fear because they speak so loudly. So the examen is much more than just a relaxing break, although it is relaxing, and it's more than just being centered, although it does make us centered. The examen is a discipline that develops our awareness of God and our awareness of others, so that we can love God and love our neighbor better by responding to them out of love. So let's begin. I always say that it's best to sit up straight, to keep your knees level with your hips in a good chair, and then to take a breath and allow ourselves to settle. And then we close our eyes, and I ask that you would now begin to go to that place deep in our hearts where we find God at the center of our hearts. The prayer of examen is one which is all about thankfulness. I say this over and over again because I'm still amazed by it. Ignatius saw that the love of God and God's blessings come to us not once or twice, but continuously like the rays of the sun. And so we take a moment simply to be thankful and to see God's blessings all around us and coming to us. So take a moment simply to be thankful and to rest in a sense of gratefulness. So we begin by asking God for the grace to see our lives the way that God sees them. God has known you since before you were born. God created you to be the unique person that you are. And God has shown his love for you continuously, but most of all, in the way that he sent Jesus for us, and that Jesus gave his life for us, even while we were at our worst. That's the way we need to learn to see our lives. So take a moment to ask God to allow you to see your life right now the way that God does. And then take a moment to rest in God's presence. And in the second step, we revisit being thankful. As you are resting in God's presence, take the time to think about every good thing that God has given you. Small things, big things. It might be people, your health, your job, the fact that you might be in a warm home, that every meal you have, the food we have itself, comes from God as a gift to us. So now take a few moments to be thankful. Remember that at any time during this video, if you want to spend more time being thankful or just reflecting, you can simply hit pause. But in that spirit of thanks and from God's perspective, take the time to look back over the previous 24 hours. Many of us have a hard time thinking about what happened yesterday. So the easiest way might be to start with just right now and working your way backwards, like you're rewinding a film. As you consider your past 24 hours, begin to notice people. Who have you been with? What about conversations? What were you thinking about over the last 24 hours? Where did you go? Where did you feel hurried? Where did you feel strong or at rest? As you do this, now think about where was God particularly present? If you had any strong emotions yesterday, anger, fear, happiness, joy, allow those to be spots that you pause and take a look at. St. Ignatius believed that our emotions were often strong indicators of God's presence in our lives. So what was going on when you felt this way? As you consider some of those moments, ask the Lord, what does this mean? What should I notice? Now take a moment to listen to what God's Spirit is saying to you. Now, take a little bit of time to consider what didn't go right in the last 24 hours. Maybe you had an argument or you were angry with someone. Maybe you heard something and it brought up strong feelings. Maybe you gave in to an old temptation. Maybe you're feeling guilty about something. Take the time to think about that moment, and if you need God's forgiveness, remember that His grace is there to forgive. If you need to make amends to someone, make a note of that, and you can make a phone call later. But take a few moments now to think about what went poorly and to make sure that you ask for God's forgiveness. And now we've come to the last step of the examen, looking forward to the next 24 hours. What do you have coming up where you will need God's help? Do you have a phone call that's going to be hard, or an appointment? Is there a hard meeting ahead? Do you have a test? Think about the next 24 hours and pray, Lord, give me your grace and strength for what I can see ahead, and your grace and strength for what I cannot see ahead. And go ahead and ask. Now, to complete the examen, say the Lord's Prayer. Well, you've completed another prayer of examen. Way to go. Congratulations. It's a little hard to get started, but once you do, I hope that you will find this prayer very helpful during your day. Taking the time to reflect on where God is, taking the time to be able to practice your listening to God, expecting to hear from God, this is all part of basic Christian life. We may not have heard about it growing up or in recent years, but this is the stuff that Jesus did with his disciples, because it's what he did when he would get away for his little mini retreats he did early in the mornings and sometimes late at night. So allow the Lord to continue to work in your life, knowing how deeply you are loved and that God never leaves you. And continue to pray this prayer. You may end up having an impact in some way on someone's life that you never even imagined. So we'll see you next time.